It's the Engine Braking F1 podcast.
Engine braking is not good.
That's what Max Verstappen thinks about us. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining possibly the most okayest podcast in the F1 space. I am joined, as always, by my beautiful co-host and internet husband, Blake, aka Brrrake. I'm Dan, aka Engine Mode 11, and we had a really big guest lined up for this episode, but the best we could manage was YouTube content creator star, legend, that is, friend of the show, Tommo. How you doing, my friend?
Cousin of the show, I like to think, right?
Cousin, okay,
your
yeah,
brothers
we'll go
and
with
cousin.
that.
Yeah, I think we're. I mean, we've been around a couple times. We've been on your show a couple times, and this is the first time to have you on, man. Welcome. How you doing?
Good. We went for dinner, didn't we, Blake, a little while ago?
Yeah, we had a little
the place we went to.
a little Japanese joint.
All right, yeah, no, thanks, guys.
Lovely.
Oh, you were busy, and that's why they called me, because they wanted you for the last lap show, and you were busy, and I was like, all right, I'll go hang out. And Tom and I had a really lovely.
You
lunch.
decided to prioritize like your family, your children, like
Yeah, who would do such a thing?
All right,
And not only you two going out for dinner together, you've also both now been on the Sky F1 podcast.
Yeah, I think that's out today. We did a little remote recording, a little Baku post race with Aunt Davidson, Rachel, and the host Matt. It was good. It was a good chat, and that should be out by the time you're hearing this on a podcast. The Sky Sports F1 podcast will have it. And Tommo, you were on what, 2 weeks ago, or after the last race, Australia?
Week before. Yeah, it was after Australia.
Yeah.
With Teddy K.
Go on, big man.
It was good. Good fun. Did
he let you look in his notebook?
Studio, by the way.
No, we did it remote. Rachel was in Baku, Ant was in the UK, I was in the UK, and I guess Matt's in the UK. But did Ted let you see in his notebook?
I did see his notebook. I can't, I did try and swipe it, but he was very protective. It's kind of like my precious vibe. Yeah.
Like,
try and take Dobby's ring away or whatever.
Yeah, it was somebody comes over to your house and says, hey, can I borrow a mitten for the content? You're just like, no.
There's a lion, and Ted's got his notebook, so fair enough. No, it was a godly experience though.
That's
to
awesome.
See him in the flesh.
All right, Dan.
When's Dan getting his invite? Do you reckon that's
fucking never, I think.
We slate them too much.
I think, was it last episode I told Sky to go fuck themselves? So, I mean, I don't think I'll be getting that invite anytime soon.
But it was just out of love, and it wasn't really personal. Or
was
it?
Yeah, exactly.
We've spoken about this before on the podcast. I hate everyone, and that's a term of endearment.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
True equality, Dan.
Oh my God.
Equality.
I love
everyone equally.
So here's what we're gonna do this episode. We've got a little Baku review. We'll talk about the sprint race weekend format as well. We've got a fraud watch. We've got an engine mode good boy, which Tommo is making some calculations as we speak with the infinite levels of wheel knowledge that he possesses. We've got our random fandom reports where Dan and I were assigned a random team because we're so biased and all we ever talk about is big up Red Bull and then dump on Mercedes and Ferrari. That's all we do, right? No. We've been given a report card this weekend, so I'm doing Williams. Dan, who do you have?
Haas.
Oh my God. Tommo, while we're
pretty easy to do Haas.
Yeah. So. While we're doing it, Tommo, I would like to give you Aston Martin. So think about 5 bullet points in a report card to give Aston Martin this weekend, because I feel like that one's a decent little bag, and so that we don't have to, have the negativity bias that we need to make content work. We can. There's a couple of romances there that we can talk about. But if you make a Taylor Swift reference, I'm ending the show.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Good to know. and if you do make one, I probably will miss it because I don't listen to Taylor Swift. So yeah.
Yeah, no, true. I can't say I'm a huge fan, so we'll see. We'll see if I can. All right. See if I can shake it off and.
Right. That's it. Cancel it.
All right, Tommo's gone.
Even I know that one. That's my limit. Right. As a white middle-aged old man, that's the only reference I'm going to get.
Oh my God. Well, so before we get into it, we also got a little Miami preview, and we've got Dan and I have our random fandom draw for next week. And what I think we should do is we should do a draw for Tommo and let Tommo drop in on the Twitter, or just record a quick 30-second clip after Miami and send it to us, and we'll let you guys see how Tommo has done on his report card for next week. So, shall we get into it? We'll talk about
over it.
The events of the weekend. Dan, I'll let you lead us through FP1. We'll talk about the events of the weekend, and then we can have a little round table about the sprint race. We know how you feel about the sprint race, Dan. I think I have a rough idea how Tommo feels, but let's talk about this sprint race. But talk to me. Friday, what happened? What was good? And Tommo, of course, as you were watching this from home, glued to your computer screen or television set, any interjections? You have the floor as well. And if Dan's talking, just cut him off. That's what I do.
Yeah, no. Just fucking pretend I'm not here. It would be no different from me being at home with my wife and kids, to be honest. So
I'll take on that one for you.
Yeah.
Go on, Dan. Crack on. I'll interject.
Yeah, no, free practice Friday. We only got FP1, so there was no real high fuel running. Gasly decided to set fire to his Alpine in solidarity with his French brethren who are striking against the pension reforms.
Yep.
That was good of him. Magnussen decided to retire because he just had enough.
Yep.
Tsunoda had a little shunt. Verstappen was quickest, but Ferrari, to me, was a bit of a surprise at how close they were. Not necessarily a surprise how quick Perez looked, because there's something unnatural about him at a street circuit. I still don't fucking understand what that's about.
I don't understand it either, but like, not in a bad way. I just like trying to explain it, like all the things we could talk about. It's just like, there's no science.
Like, if you don't understand it, if you of all people don't understand it, you were his performance. Like, if you don't, then it's just written in the stars. It's God.
But it's one of those things. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the world that you can put numbers and metrics to, and some of the things about that you can. But if you were to try and say pinpoint that thing and do it better, you can't do it. And anybody that tries to do it is probably wrong and full of shit, in my opinion. But there are some things. But even talking yesterday with Ant, it was like, what is it? You're a driver. You know exactly what this machinery is like, what endurance racing is like. What is it? And it was like, it could be any combination of a matrix of 20 different things. And here's those things. And it was just like, yeah.
I think the most, I don't know, from my point of view, the most clear and obvious thing that, street tracks typically have, I mean, how many corners in Baku are 90 degrees? Like,
yes,
typically they're not those long flowing corners that you get at more typical circuits. That's the only distinction I can make, because walls are just defining track limits, but it's not like Max isn't prepared to push to those limits and push over them either. So
it's just it's a lack of self-preservation with the right amount of reserve at the right times. And look what happened to Carlos this weekend. We'll get back into that. But like, signs of to free practice one, it was like you have Max Verstappen, you had Leclerc and Perez really close, within a tenth of each other, right? And then you had Sainz like half a second off, and then everybody else was a second, half a second behind him, up to a second and a half off of that. So it's like, okay, there's cars in there, but you've got Leclerc, Sainz, and then Verstappen and Perez was a really close thing in free practice one. But yeah, we can come back to the driver and the human aspect. But yeah, I guess the last thing there, Dan, is McLaren. McLaren brought a whole raft of new stuff, and I felt
brace
like
yourselves, McLaren fans, because shockingly, it seems you've actually got an upgrade that seems to have worked. I mean, when's the last time that happened?
God.
Okay. The thing is, I wonder with McLaren how much, because Baku's such a unique circuit, like compared to the majority of the other, 22 on the calendar. I think I saw some quotes from McLaren Orlando, maybe saying like, these upgrades, we won't see the full extent of the performance gain until we go to a more conventional circuit. So it'd be interesting to see what they can do in medium speed, like pushing that car in ways that Baku doesn't. Baku challenges certain characteristics of a car, but not others, right? So
yeah, but that's an interesting point, because if we highlight one of the main deficiencies of McLaren, other than having no fucking downforce or grip, one of the biggest things we've noticed throughout the season, and they've talked about it and even admitted that their car is extremely draggy and low efficiency. and we go to Baku, which is a high efficiency circuit, you get a lot back in terms of lap time in the straight, because it's a 2.2 kilometers straight effectively from 16 to turn 1. And they're going quite well and reasonably there. So if they made some wholesale, let's say, efficiency improvements to their car, that's for free everywhere, as long as there's no subtle nuances. And I can't think of a setup change that says, you know what, you can only go well at low speed 90-degree corners, everything else will be mid. You know, yes, we don't know how much downforce they've added to the car, but if you just, you know, it's like adding engine power, reducing weight, those are free. Reducing drag is free.
It still just feels like we've got so many questions around McLaren, because, like, yeah, Piastri was sick all week, so you don't know how much that's taken out of his performances, not in a good way. Lando thought he could have qualified P4, had a stinker in the sprint because he was on the wrong tyre, and then was stuck in a train behind Hulkenberg and Ocon in the race. So we still didn't even really see the potential from McLaren again.
Yeah, but it's one of those things, like, I would take Ferrari, for example. Great qualifying, nowhere in the race. Like you know, second, you know, top tier in qualifying and tier 3 in the race. You know, they were miles behind. So I don't know, what stuck out from free practice too? Because this is the new sprint weekend. We only get one practice session. Dan, was there anything that you were thinking after Friday, you're like, I'm surprised by that or not? Or did we just kind of gloss over all of it?
No, I think the only things that stuck out for me were how much toxic smoke that the Alpine is capable of producing. I was very impressed with that. That was proper burnage. That was, and B, the McLaren upgrades. I think.
Did you
actually? I'm going to say sorry. I'm going to add a third one. C, Ferrari, because, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit here.
That's
I'll
fine.
get to this later. But my predictions had Ferrari nowhere this weekend.
Yep.
When clearly they were. So I'm not really sure what. Yeah. Basically, I'm full of shit.
No, aren't we all? Did you see how much fire extinguisher juice they pumped into the roll hoop of his car? It's just like black, you know, gray smoke. It's just like, but they couldn't put the fire out. That was my favorite. Was they're like, Pierre, don't shift. He's like, okay. It's like, mate, you got a whole lot bigger problems than not changing gears. The thing's on fucking fire, bro. Get out. But obviously,
did they say what it was in the end that actually caused the fire? Like, specifically, what part of the car?
No.
I think it was hydraulic leak. I think
that's all I could gather was the Hydes leak. So, but yeah, why don't we? What about qualifying? Because we go Friday, free practice 1. None of the drivers, as Dan said, elected to do any high fuel running, so we did no data whatsoever. Foreshadow, we didn't need any. And anything we didn't need, people that weren't going to win anything anyway, did a little tire test in the sprint, which is a bit of a bummer. But qualifying Friday, this, if you're just catching up on the new format, Friday qualifying sets the order for Sunday's Grand Prix. What were your predictions, Dan?
You
know what
were my predictions for quali? Yeah, I got them here. What were you?
Tommo, what were you thinking going into this weekend? Top pecking order in quali, single lap.
I mean, outside of Red Bull obviously being on top, I did think Ferrari would go well, just because of their, I mean, munching through tires is their main Achilles heel, right? So obviously Azerbaijan seems to be a bit calmer on tires. I didn't think Aston Martin would do very well.
No.
I just thought draggy, them and the Mercedes, I think just too draggy, too slow in a straight line. So that's why I thought of those top 4, I thought it'd be Red Bull, Ferrari. Yeah, for sure, like at the front.
Yeah. So Dan, what'd we say? Your top order.
My predictions.
Yeah.
So I went Verstappen, Perez, Alonso. I was feeling that Alonso hype train. I've been on it all season.
Yeah, you have. I love it. I'm here for it.
The Dark Lord himself. Hamilton in 4th, Russell in 5th. I thought the Mercedes would be all right here, and they were distinctly average, I think, weren't they?
Yeah, and it's kind of like a 4-tier race, that one. I ended up going for Verstappen, Leclerc, Perez, Russell, Hamilton. Nobody really backing Sainz too much, but even on Friday, Sainz managed to out-qualify Hamilton. Hamilton had a shocker Friday, and he looked quite a bit better on the next sprint. But I feel like, it was just a lot of action really quickly, and Friday just went by. But before we
Carlos got a bit lucky as well, didn't he? With De Vries shunting, that was just as he spun, so that kind of took the heat off of him a bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, well, what's that? No, I'm just cooling tires real quick. No big deal. But in terms of like, if we look at the performance ranking order and like whoever's like, I look at every team's fastest driver from every qualifying session we've had, not the sprint qualifying, just the main qualifying events. Ferrari outperforming relative to pole, pretty much. So relative to pole, Aston and Mercedes fell back relative to pole this weekend. Typically, they qualify about 0.5% off. They were 1% off on Friday. McLaren made a reasonable small step compared to where they were in Saudi. Australia was a throwaway. Haas in the bin, absolutely in the bin. Haas are usually about 1.5% off. They were 2.5% off. I feel like they don't adapt well, and they need a lot of sessions, so maybe that lack of free practice hurt their pecking order quite a bit. Alpine falling away, and Williams about where they were. That's about it, really. Nothing else too exciting. I mean, this is the first time Ferrari have out-qualified Red Bull this season.
Where were AlphaTauri relative? Because I know Nick De Vries put it P6 in FP1, and then obviously Yuki got to Q3, and there was potential more there, maybe. That was
AlphaTauri's closest to pole. In terms of take their best driver in Q3, they were 1.4% off a pole so far this season. On average, they're about 2.2 off. So,
big up Yuki. Give him a little toot. He's killing it at the minute.
It does, yeah, he is, and he's killing right rear corners as well.
No, don't worry about that. Listen, he looks like fucking Senna regen in comparison to Nick De Vries at the moment.
God damn. I did it.
Oh, it's about time as well. It's about time. It's a shame they don't. If you awarded points for everyone, like you look at what he's 2 P11s, 2 P10s.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, damn.
It's the plight of sixth fastest car kind of thing, isn't it? Or getting into sixth fastest. It's like there's nothing for it. You get nothing. And speaking of getting nothing for it, we can come back and touch on some of those points in a minute. But let's talk about Saturday, and then we'll talk about the format in general. How about that? So Saturday we had another qualifying session. It was another qualifying session. I don't really have too much to say about it. Does anybody have any first of all, what do we think about the sprint qualifying or the sprint shootout format? The name is a bit of a misnomer because it's not a shootout. It's just you could do less laps than you can do in a normal qualifying. Dan, what was your takeaway from it?
Right, so I'll fully preface this by saying Saturday I was at a wedding, so I had an excessively large amount of alcohol.
What were you drinking? That's probably more exciting. What you had to drink was probably more exciting than Saturday as a whole.
Okay, cool.
And if you squared up with anybody, it definitely hands down destroys Saturday. Full thing.
You had a Verstappen Russell-esque interjection.
Yeah. Sorry, man. I just inspected your side pods there. Oh,
I had a shunt in the church car park. No, I had cider, dirty cheap cider.
Good man.
Because that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, you are.
Then I topped it off with multiple shots of. It's like this rosé tequila.
Oh, tequila rose.
Tequila rose, that's it. Yeah, it's like a milkshake. Like you could just down the bottle. I was like, yeah, no, cool, another.
I think Jake Dennis was telling me about this stuff. He's like, man, you got to try it. I'm like, you're a goofball. No way.
That stuff's dangerous, man. Like you say, it doesn't taste alcoholic, so you can just get for it.
And then you just wake up dead.
Yeah. Well, I woke up and decided to catch up on the sprint qualifying. So. Yeah, I didn't watch it live per se, but I like the idea of it. Yeah, no, we'll leave it at that. I like it compared to the other qualifying format, but there are changes I would make, and we'll discuss them momentarily.
Okay, Tommo, what were your thoughts about sprint shootout style in general, relative to a normal weekend, relative to the previous sprint format?
Yeah, I think compared to having just an FP3 session, which is pretty, you've said it yourself, like you don't gain that much from an FP3 session.
The most important session of the weekend. Don't listen to him, right? He doesn't fucking know what he's talking about. That's why he's doing this shit podcast with me.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the evidence is there, Blake. I don't know. I just think it's just not different enough. If you're gonna like the fact that you're asking me, like we're talking about 2 lots of qualifying, and some like I can't necessarily remember what things happened in the sprint quali versus the normal quali, like because it wasn't. If it felt distinct and different, then it would be more memorable, unique when you're reflecting back on what happened. But it just felt
more the same.
I liked the mediums. Yeah, I liked the mediums, and it felt F2-esque, like push and then call push. That was that bit's fine. Like I like that. That felt a bit different, but it didn't feel different enough. Nowhere, especially in Q3 as well.
Yeah,
Silly.
I think the biggest, the thing that there's a couple things I didn't like about it. The fact that you had to use a new set of softs in SQ3, and we had Lando Norris sitting in the garage because he had to use an extra set of softs in Friday's Q1. It's like, why would you guys do that? Why would you do that? Why not just let them use softs? Because they're not going to sit in the garage. They will put in a set of laps on a new or use soft. So some of it was good, some of it was bad, but I reckon I'm with you on it, Tommo. The fact, and I haven't put my finger on it yet until you said that. It's just like, it's not distinct enough, and realistically, my investment in the sprint session is particularly low. It's higher than, let's say, a Parc Fermé locked FP2 session in the old format, where you go, what was it? Practice 1, qualify, cars locked, then you do free practice 2, sprint race sets the order for the grid, and then the Grand Prix on Sunday. I'd have no interest in that for many reasons, especially the fact that the sprint race unshuffles the grid back into pace order, then you do another race after that. But I feel like it wasn't different enough. And yeah, you could effectively at this track, you could do 2 timed laps in your SQ3 run. You could do fast, slow, fast. That's it. Just give them 1 lap. Make them do it on the fucking hard tires.
One shot. One shot.
Yeah.
One shot.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Like I think there's a happy medium. Maybe you have 2 sessions instead of 3, and then 20 go out on the medium, because that first part I was like, okay, that feels a bit different. You're not in all the time, you're on medium tires, you can push multiple times. That felt good. And then cut the grid in half, like lose the bottom 10 and then do 1 shot for the rest of them. That's what I think. Like, because then it's going to feel unique, it's going to feel special to that. If you're going to compartmentalize the sprint into that day and just make it the focus of that day, you need to make it feel different. You can't be thinking back after and being like, oh well, wait, hang on, did you do that lap in sprint qualifying or normal qualifying? Because it feels the same.
I just don't remember. I don't remember what happened at all, because it's neat. I like numbers and data, and I love digging into I dig into every session, right? I'm overloaded. I'm not having fun doing it because it's like, what's the point of adding this? It hasn't added anything. So we've set the order on Saturday morning, which is a hotter track temp than we did. So, qualifying was in later in the day. The track was cooling from 40 down to 30 or 50 down to 30 or something. So the track temperature was dropping quite a bit through Friday's main event qualifying session. And then sprint qualifying was early in the morning. It was about 50 degrees track. So, you've got some variability and uncertainty going into that. And then we have the sprint race. Thoughts on the sprint?
De Vries squeezed Yuki into the wall. It was a bit naughty. But other than that, it was a procession, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. Damn.
I mean, I don't know what AlphaTauri are playing at, because this isn't the first time. This isn't their first rodeo. I mean, when they set Yuki out, was it Baku, wasn't it, with the dodgy DRS as well? And they just gaffer taped it up. Like,
I forgot about that.
I respect that, though. I do respect that one. That one was good. Yeah, that one was fine. But what about the sprint race itself?
That's it. Done.
Yeah, done. I could not give, and again, I've said this before, if you like it, fair play. I'm not going to tell you what you can and can't like, but in my opinion, I cannot think of anything more fucking boring than a sprint weekend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad I went out drinking and got a hangover so I could sleep through the race, Yeah. It was infinitely more enjoyable than watching this fucking weekend.
And it feels bad, and I think we'll come back to the main reason why I think this weekend was perceived to be a dud, and I'll let you guys have your say on that, but let's talk, before we get away from the sprint race, There was only one talking point from that sprint race. That was Yuki smashing. There's two. There's Yuki smashing his wheel and then being sent out with the car doing the crab down. It's like, dude, park that thing at the end of the pit lane. Do not pull out onto the track. I don't think there's much to discuss about that. The fact that he got halfway around the track, drug it, and then parked it on the track and caused a safety car was very poor. That was stupid. But the only other thing that happened was George and Max tangling for an entire one lap. What did we?
Oh, blimey!
Yeah.
Crikey!
Oh my god!
Had 2 corners, wasn't it?
Yeah. What? There was a lot of talk and there's a lot of interesting opinions about that, but we've got 3 probably equally dog shit opinions right here. Tell me. Somebody take this one.
I don't care. I think, Max has always driven balls to the wall. I think George felt like he'd try to do a bit of balls to the wall. They had a little love tap. They had a little bit of a confrontation at the end. Max called him a dickhead. And
as you do.
Let me tell you, right? Calling someone a dickhead is absolutely vanilla compared to some of the things that I've heard on team radio.
Yeah.
Right? That is mild. That's not even spicy.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
If anything, that's a term of endearment. Like,
yeah. All right, dickhead.
In some instances. You know what I mean? Oh,
yeah.
shut up, you dickhead. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, he was clearly miffed, so it was one of those things, but like, that's like, yeah. But there's a lot of people like freaking out. I was like, I can't believe how unsportsmanlike that was. I'm like, okay, dude, that is like literally if that didn't happen, you would have nothing to talk about today. And imagine you put a camera in somebody's face when they're having a confrontation and talking about something.
That camera operator shot over. Like, he could see them too. And
Yeah, go on that. Jerry,
get the boom arm over.
Jerry Springered them. Rest in peace, Jerry Springer, by the way. But he Jerry Springered him, fully Netflixed him.
Yep.
But
That's it.
what was your take on it?
I don't. Dan, I agree. Like, I don't give a toss. Like, the thing is, all of these drivers, most of them anyway, seem to get along really well, which is nice. But I mean, you look through that sport is competitive. It's top line. You're going to have these characters, these fiery personalities. I think Max and George. I mean, that's one to look forward to now going into the future, because not only are they very, they compete well on track. I think their personalities, the difference in their personality, kind of like you got with Senna and Prost. Like, it's part of the personality difference helps make the spice spicier. But also it is, look, I think we could all acknowledge, Max can't genuinely be like really upset about a driver pushing him, like pushing the limits, maybe going a bit over the edge, because that's how Max has raced like his entire career. That's part of what has made Max so good, is that he, puts his car in a position at times where you're the one who has to back out. And, neither of them backed out. It's risky. It happened. He can't be genuinely that annoyed, though.
Yeah, exactly. I'm completely with both of you. Like, on one hand, there were people saying, and rightly so, that it was rich coming from Max to say that, you can't be that aggressive on lap 1. It's like you said, Max has always been super aggressive, and that is one of the things I like the most about him. So I'm not saying George don't do that, Max don't do that. I'm like, here's the only thing. If George had taken Max out of the race or put him in the wall, that's a different story. That's an entirely...
I'd be there right now to arrest him. I'd be like, listen, George, you can't fucking PR your way out of this one. The terrorism tour stops today.
But at the same time, right? That's what we want to see. We want to see the drivers racing.
Exactly.
Okay, if he had put a hole in the side pod and punctured the radiator and put Max out of the race, that would have been on him. By the rules, Max had right to be there. Overtaking around the outside, he was ahead. Right? So you've got to leave a space. If you have a love tap, fuck it, man. What do we want? We don't.
Like GP said it himself, though, didn't he, on the radio? It's like, these guys around you've got less to lose than you have. So, George is gonna, he knows the situation he's in at the minute. He's not going to be able to win the championship this year, and if he's got an opportunity, he's gonna go for it. And I'd rather see more drivers race like that. And you let them be human. You let them have their little emotional moment after. Yeah. But I just hope that
let them throw some fucks. Let them throw some fucks.
Yeah. And it's not that. It's like everyone deeps bloody Hulkenberg Magnussen back in the day when he told him to suck his balls. Like, that's even more vanilla. If we think that this is vanilla, That's like flavorless ice cream, not even a vanilla.
And they like occasionally beat the shit out of each other in NASCAR anyway. Isn't
Yeah.
that like a NASCAR thing?
Let 'em
tear
race.
someone out of a car.
At least we haven't seen anybody punching someone else in the face shield of their helmet this season, but maybe soon.
No.
But let's put it this way, and Tommo, you had a great point on that, is the fact that George has very little to lose, and at that point in Max's career, not only was he really new to Formula One, he rarely had anything to lose. They weren't fighting for the championship then. So it's like, fuck it, you know what? If I this goes wrong for both of us, they lose more than me. And that is the risk reward game. Is that, do you want to be consistently taking people out of races? No. But racing hard, I like to see it. I'm into it, and there was no DNF. A little bit of bodywork damage. I'm fine. So
George doesn't need to worry about Max Verstappen. George needs to worry about getting struck in the back of the head with a very extremely aerodynamic hammer that has got property of Adrian Newey written on the side of it after what he did to those side pods. Adrian's got to be sitting there thinking,
oh my god.
Because was it they knew they had floor damage. It wasn't until you saw the images when the race finished that the massive hole in the side. But I guess as well, you look at the onboards, that could have easily gone, Russell could have got a puncher. Like, it's one of them that you will to will. It can take the most subtle, like nothing. I mean, was it Russell retired when he retired in Australia? That was because a random bit of debris that just happened to go in the engine bay, and then boom, that's gone. So
yeah. We don't see too many of those. Nah, we don't see too many of those. But right, final verdict. Question for both of you. New sprint format versus old sprint format. Which one? Dan, new or old?
I'm on the new.
Okay, Tommo?
I would say new.
Okay. Now, next question. If you could bin off every sprint race ever again for the rest of the season, would you do it? I think the new one's better, first of all, to say that.
Do bears shit in the woods?
Does the...
Wear a pointy hat?
Yeah. I was going to say, does the Pope shit in the woods? But yeah.
The sprint can sprint its way fucking out of here, in my opinion.
Fair.
I would keep them because I want to see how this system looks at a different track. Because the race was a stinker, so it's like, was the sprint a stinker just because, was it stinky because it was a sprint weekend, or was it stinky just because sometimes you have stinkers? Like, even with that sprint, sometimes races are
Fair
stinkers.
enough.
So it's like correlation, causation. I want to see more of them to get more of an idea of what is actually at fault.
That's a good point. And I think as soon as we all saw that they picked Baku for a sprint race, we were like, that's going to be shit.
Yeah. I want to believe, and I'm eternally an optimist, but it is like, well, there's your problem. It's at Baku. So speaking of, before we round off the why it was a stinker, let's talk about the Grand Prix. And the Grand Prix was not particularly interesting.
I'm going to cut in. Sorry.
Go on. Send it.
Sorry. I said I was going to talk about what I would change about the sprint format.
Dude, send it. Right. We need to do that.
Right. So I would change, and it's now 2 because you reminded me as we're talking about it. The one that you reminded me of is the stupid new tyre rule. That can fuck off.
Yeah, and sprint qualifying.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, Bennett.
But the one I was thinking of originally is I want to see what they originally proposed. I want hards in the first session, mediums in the second, and then softs in the last session.
That was for a normal race weekend to try. I'm not even at a sprint, but yeah, why not?
I don't know why they went medium, soft. I think,
Well, when I heard that they were messing around with the tyres for it, I just assumed, it'd be hard, medium, soft.
Yeah.
So don't really get it.
No.
Yeah. So that'd be the things I would change.
Okay. Tommo, any outright changes that you would make?
Yeah, I mean, I think changing the format of the sprint itself, I think I've kind of gone back and forth on this. It's either you make the sprint a bit shorter or you add a mandatory pit stop just to add that degree of strategy, because it's a shorter race. You can't pit into clean air as consistently as you can in a long race necessarily. I don't know, like how would you feel about that, Blake? I feel like you're going to be more knowledgeable in terms of the nuance and actually how that would affect things. Like, because if everyone has to pit, you might get some people pitting on lap 1 and then trying to get clean track, or some people like waiting right to the end, vice versa. I'm not sure how that would work.
I think that's an interesting one, because if you get to the point where leaders, you have a big enough gap and you're pitting into traffic, you could have some really, really random number generator races that are super arbitrary. It's like, that is in no way, shape, or form an indication of the performance, and you might as well just toss a coin to decide where you finish the race. Maybe. I don't know. I think you can simulate that and look at the team's paces and say, how far out will they be? I'm not a big fan of reverse grids, because then all that's doing is, if your leaders don't have enough pace to come through, and depending on the nature of the circuit, you're just basically giving some free points to shit teams, which I like merit. I like merit, not charity races.
You could maybe reverse just the top 10 like they do in F2. I would be less against that. Maybe but even then you'd still maybe get like artificially, we're just not going to bother to go out, and then like, I don't know. It feels like there's one thing, like the rules, because you've got the rules as they are, but you've also got Red Bull being clear. Then you've got like the next 3 teams. Then you've got pretty much everyone else. Yep. There's kind of not a midfield anymore. There's like a 6-3-1 at the moment. But obviously these rules, hopefully next year it might be, 2 at the front or 3 at the front. And then all of a sudden the way we look at these rules are different, because it's like, hopefully these regulations will do their job in the next couple of years and start to. It's only like a year and 4 races into these new regs, so
they're not going to have an impact yet. Like we won't even see the sliding scale nor Red Bull's penalty in terms of the time scale it takes those things to happen. You might start to see something by mid-season, but that also makes the assumption that everybody's development time is equal. Like 100 hours.
I figured this out.
Go on, speak to me.
I was talking to someone about this at the wedding on Saturday night.
How many
I was
siders
well
deep?
In.
All right,
this
full.
was like 4 siders deep and multiple shots deep.
Okay.
All right, and it was similar to points to what you said, right? A reverse grid probably ain't going to work, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to reverse the points, right? Maximum points for whoever finishes 10th on a sliding down scale to first, and then we get to see everyone trying to shithouse their way back into 10th place on the last lap.
Oh my god, what the hell?
It'd be like Monza when they're all tripping over each other.
That's how you make it exciting.
It's like, all right, Max, we need to lose 5 seconds a lap. This lap is like, mate, the tires are so fucking cold, I can't stay on the track.
You know what, though? Something I want to say about the sprint, right? I'll say specifically to you, Dan, because I know you're very anti-sprint, right? You're not on board, but the way I see it, you look at the viewing figures, the increased viewing figures on a Friday, the increased viewing figures for the Saturday, the increased, I think, what like value for money you get from a ticket as well. If you go on Friday, you're actually seeing something competitive. As much as I'm like, if I could have free choice in my dream F1 and I didn't have to think about the commercial side and all that, I probably wouldn't have the sprint. But for me, it's just inevitable. So I've kind of gone past the stage where I'm not even bothered about complaining about it anymore. I know it's going to happen. So now I'm just like, how do we make it as good as it can be? Because I think competitive running Friday, Saturday, Sunday is inevitable. It will just be the total F1 calendar in like 10 years. I've got no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, I've fully resigned myself to the fact that I'm reaching that age where I'm like old man yells at cloud, and I appreciate that what I think is probably not what a lot of other people think. So
I think you probably have a more old school fan point of view, though. I think that's like you fuck the sprints, classic weekends, P1, 2, 3 qualify race, and I'm with Tommo's points are exactly it. Like commercially, it makes more sense. You're getting more action, you're getting more value out of the tickets, and if they can keep this going, but what we're discussing, and we've got a video I'm working on for tomorrow, is talking about that. Like we're effectively trying to band-aid stuff that's not broken. We're changing stuff that's not broken to try and fix things that are broken, like the technical regulations, the formula, how much downforce and drag the cars produce, the new engines that are coming in, which make me like I might not even be watching Formula One in 3 years with if those new engine regulations are as crap as I think they could be. I think we have enough clever people working on this to make it good. So I'm not saying that's going to happen, but
There you go. In 3 years' time, if we're still going, I'm going to have to start hosting job applications then for Blake's spot. But Adrian, if you're listening and you're free in 3 years' time, I know you've just signed a contract extension.
He's got the extension in, bro. But here's the thing: two sides. An engineer, the new weekend format makes engineering quite a bit easier. It makes it less enjoyable, easier. You're not there Friday night until midnight dicking with the setup. You've made your bets Friday afternoon on what you're running. The rest of it is rocking up operationally and trying to get the most out of what you've got. And it puts even more emphasis on the tools and infrastructure in the background to get you there. As a fan, me now going from an engineer to I watch all the sessions and I'm looking at all the cars and who's fast and who's slow. I'm looking at all the data. It's too much for me. Honestly, I'm just like, it devalues the entire thing. And I was completely like, no, that's a stupid argument. But I really think it does. Like, why do we need that much action in a weekend? It's so much shit going on. By Saturday night, I'm exhausted trying to enjoy Formula One the way I want to enjoy it. I need to go back to just like literally being like, cool, car finish, car goes zoom, very happy. I go get beers now.
Blake, I've got a question for you actually. The idea I've seen floated around, and in theory to me it sounds sound, but obviously you'd know a lot better than I would. The idea of between the sprint on Saturday and the race on Sunday, opening up Parc Fermé so that you could change the setup of the car, because then at least it's like you've not got the exact same 20 cars going out on Sunday as you did Saturday. It's like, okay, maybe Ferrari could make some changes that add loads of performance. Another team could make some changes that actually end up dicking them over, because I mean Ocon and Hulkenberg saw it fit to take the punishment and go all the way to the back just for the setup change. Would that help, do you think? Make it more
with their
less
risk
copy and paste?
Yeah, with their risk reward level though, it makes perfect sense, go to the back. But on the other hand, I think it could be interesting, and it just completely depends, because you would see interesting shifts from Saturday or from Friday to Sunday in terms of, let's say that you're going to Parc Fermé for the sprint qualifying, or for main qualifying, and then you qualify and sprint with that same car, and then you can change it for Saturday or Sunday, for example. That could be super interesting. I just don't know what it looks like, and I don't know what the team's trade-offs in terms of lap time versus top speed and race competitiveness that they're dealing with. I don't know what those sensitivities look like right now, because maybe a level of rear wing doesn't really make any difference, so maybe you wouldn't do that. Or, because people talk about this, oh, it's a race setup, or it's a qualifying setup. I've seen a few of those. There's not much in them in terms of lap time. So
I just feel like if we want to add unpredictability, just make this like, it's a team sport, right? And this is why I'm talking about, maybe there's an argument to mandate a pit stop in the sprint, because and maybe there's an argument to allow setup changes between the sprint and the race, because then it's, you'll put in more control, I guess, in the hands of the team.
Yep.
Just not just the pit crews, but the performance engineers and everyone else to like be involved in the performance of that car, rather than just, that's the car set up. Now the drivers are just going to deal with it, and we kind of know what they're capable of, and maybe it's a bit too samey. Like pit stops all the time in F1 add so much. Like imagine if we didn't have pit stops. Like the sport would be like, there would be nowhere near as exciting and interesting.
No,
like,
it wouldn't at all.
Imperative, and it's just like adding that team element.
Yeah.
I'm generally behind that.
Yeah, I really don't know how much opening Parc Fermé would add to the problem that we've got now in this instance. And I think now is a good time to talk about the race, and then we can dig into understanding why Baku wasn't well done this year. It was just kind of like, fuck you, Baku, not well done, Baku. So race looked like this. Everybody basically started on a medium and went to a hard. There were a couple guys started on a hard and did the entire race. Was it Hulkenberg and Ocon? They started on the hard and they went all the way to the end and pit on one of the last two laps for a soft to try and take the fastest lap away, a point away from someone, because they were outside of the top 10. So what that tells us is this is the exact same scenario that we had in Australia. You could have literally done an entire zero-stop race on a hard tire, which means not good. Like maybe they could do something in that instance to say you have to race the soft tire, but then everybody goes soft hard. So I don't know. That's weird. Then Lap 11, 12-ish, De Vries decided to make sure that turn 5 barrier was securely in place. And actually his wheel moved, not the barrier. So that's good that after Sainz had hit that barrier a couple times, it's still solid.
That was very good for him. Very good of him.
But so at that time, Max is saying, my tires are going away. And they're like, all right, we'll box you now from the lead. What they didn't realize was De Vries was stuck on track, and he wasn't getting moving again. And by the time all those decisions had been made, they had no further information. They thought he could move the car, but that thing was well and truly stuck there. So we got a safety car, and Max loses out. That was one thing. And then the rest of the race, like if I sum up this race, it looks like this. 2 Red Bulls out front, Max unable to close the gap to Checo. Behind that, you had Leclerc finishing some 20 seconds back behind them at the end eventually, and Alonso dipping around a couple seconds off of him, and then Sainz holding up an entire train of the remainder of the Mercedes and the Aston. And then behind that, was it a Gasly train? Or the Ocon train at the back? Ocon basic.
It was an Ocon train until we pit, and Hulkenberg. But
so we've highlighted a couple of things I'd like to talk about. One, the Red Bull pit stop thing, I think, is not really a thing. It was just like an speed of information coming and the decision you need to make. I don't think that's that dramatic. And even Max in the press was like, you know what? We didn't have all the information. These things happen. He wasn't pissed. I saw a couple of headlines that said he was furious. And it was like, he was like, it was unlucky. I was like, yeah, that sounds furious to me. So, Red Bull, Max versus Checo. Max unable to close the door, not quite happy, or unable to close the gap, not quite happy. Then we've got this idea of the Mercedes, the Aston and the Mercedes not being able to catch the Ferrari that we're chasing. Why? And then Sainz and Leclerc. Like, Sainz is in nowheresville right now. Like, what was that? 25 seconds behind Leclerc at the end of the race.
Yeah, more than a whole pit stop.
Yeah, and then we can talk about the whole thing. But I don't know, where should we start? You want to start at the front?
Go for it.
Well, Max was so bored during the race trying to figure it out. He listened to our podcast, and this is what he had to say.
EngineBraking is not good.
So there was that, and I think he's probably correct.
Yeah, it cost us a lot of money.
Criticism, lads. You know.
Yeah, I can take it.
Cost us a lot of money, but we finally cracked the in-race advertisement market.
Yeah, we nailed it. But cheers, Max. I appreciate it. If next time, instead of just telling us it's shit, you could give us some pointers, because I know that you listen to a lot of podcasts as well. So much appreciated. I don't know. Would you guys? Was there anything interesting about that? I mean, Max lost out.
What about Max slagging us off? No.
No. That was. I was surprised it took this long, honestly. So it looked like in the first stint, Checo, like Leclerc, there was no way Leclerc was hanging on to pole. He got eaten alive. That's not even a discussion. The Ferrari's race pace is nowhere compared to the Red Bull right now. But it looks like Checo was pushing up to Max quite well in the first stint before Max stopped. And then Checo won out on the safety car scenario because he was going longer and he got a free safety car stop, whereas Max stopped under yellows.
I want to ask, as 2 ex-Red Bull shills, now drinkers of Monster Energy.
Not me, coffee.
If Max doesn't come into pit, because Checo's within a second when Max comes in. Like, I'm almost certain I remember him being within a second.
It was super close.
Yeah. How does that situation play out if Max doesn't come into the pit? Does Checo go for the move? Because it was quite convenient for Red Bull that, you know, as much as the timing wasn't great for Max, it did, you know, prevent them from having. Red Bull didn't have to intervene.
No, and
at the weekend, basically.
And Max had the pit window. Everybody behind Russell had pit already, so they were kicking off as soon as lap 6. And there was a pit window, so that made perfect sense that he could pit there. Expecting everybody else was probably. Are you trying? Are you trying to trauma dump on us into thinking about 2018? Do you try to bring up 2018 again? Because Dan,
I'm saying, do you think that played into Red Bull's thought process to pit Max when they did, because they wanted to avoid a potential need to make a decision, not in any particular way, whether it was pro Checo, pro Max, or whatever. But you know, if they're close and then you take them, if you split them from each other by pitting one, then you don't have a decision to make. Then that's what I'm saying. Do you think that played into their minds?
I think that was a pleasant benefit of the situation. Max was like, I'm not happy, tires are going away. I'm like, okay, cool, we've got a pit window, we'll pit you into it. And I think that's as far as that went. I think I don't see any reason why we shouldn't let them race. And I think Max
2018. Oh, sorry. That.
Yeah, but I think Max probably thought about Saturday and was like, yeah, there's a lot to lose here. He understands they both have a lot of risk reward, and probably he would have backed himself to be able to take it back to him if he did get ahead before a stop sequence. Is my thought on it.
I would like to think that they'd have been fine to race.
I think so. Because I feel like the vibe between them right now is pretty good. I know we've had some.
I think Red Bull should, because they've got a clear advantage in the hardware at the moment, and kind of 2014 Mercedes, Hamilton and Rosberg could fight. They could, they had their few instances, they tripped over each other a few times, but it was fine because their car was,
clear,
by far and away clear. So, you're not hemorrhaging points. I would say if there was, if Ferrari were right up there with Red Bull like they were this time last year, then maybe it's a different conversation in terms of, because then you're taking points off of each other. I mean, Fernando's only he's only 27 points, I think, off of Checo at the moment. So that's 33 behind Max. Like, if it had been 4 wins for Max or 4 wins for Checo, that gap between Fernando and then the top Red Bull would be much bigger. But I think Red Bull can get away with letting them race for now, anyway.
Yeah. What do you think, Dan? When you get called up when Christian retires as one of the longest standing team principals currently on the grid, they're gonna look at your CV and say, those memes are fucking dank. Get him in here. It's the future.
What would I do?
Yeah.
Well, I'd fucking let him race.
Yeah.
Because I love the chaos and I love the drama.
Yeah.
But if I had to try and put a serious hat on, I'd probably echo what Tommo said. I said if there was more on the line, I'd be more inclined to say, just bring it home.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, right, you know what, Checo, this one's yours, or Max, this one's yours this weekend. But what happened was Checo gets ahead, and Max is unable to close the gap to him. He doesn't get DRS, I don't believe. Is that true or not? He's close, but not close enough.
Max got into DRS from Checo.
I was probably asleep, hungover at this stage, mate. So I'm just on your guidance for that bit.
Yeah, but I mean, like other than what is it, Hamilton on Sainz, that's about as close as they get. And then the Ocon group was pretty close, but that's because Ocon packed all of them up.
Because the Max had to clear Leclerc, didn't he? Because obviously Leclerc and Checo both jumped Max from the pits, wasn't it? Because it was like a 9-second loss of time relative. And by the time Max cleared Charles, it was about, I don't know, 1.5 seconds, and it just gradually got bigger until Max got on top of his car, and then last 10 laps he started to gradually close it down a bit.
Well, that's an interesting thing, because we're talking about a lack of ability to overtake, right? And none of the drivers, let's say Max never got DRS on Checo this weekend, right?
Apparently he did for a very short period.
Okay, but like it was basically there. So the DRS was a talking point from the race. They made it shorter by 100 meters, but that wouldn't have factored in, considering if you're in the DRS for 1 lap and you don't get it done and you fall out of DRS after that, and the idea that these cars are becoming even more difficult to follow, like they're still better than the 21 cars. They're still, like, if you look at the groupings, now definitely you have people holding up and they're not able to overtake, but they're able to follow for an entire 40 lap stint. So I'm kind of torn on that, because I like going back, adding 100 meters to the DRS for most of these battles wouldn't have changed much, at least at the front end. Maybe in the Ocon bunch and back, fine. But Red Bulls, no. The Leclerc, Alonso, no. Hamilton on Sainz, maybe, because Hamilton did spend a couple laps inside his gearbox, but he's got quite a draggy car. Another 100 meters on the DRS might have helped him, but something's going on here.
I mean, you said this earlier, Blake. Like, I'm reluctant to look at changing the rules and when that's not necessarily the actual source of the problem. Red Bull have developed a fantastic racing car, right? A racing car that's clear of the rest, and they're on their own at the front, at the top at the moment in terms of a racing car. Qualifying, fine, Ferrari, whatever, but that's not where you get the points. if you look at the rest of the field, so we had Alonso closing up to within a second of Charles. If that's going for a win, if you just let's just like remove the Red Bulls for a minute, right? He's within a second of a win. You've got Hamilton within a second of Carlos, and having a few little sniffs, but doesn't have that straight line speed to make it count. You had Stroll losing position, making a mistake, and then that allowed Lewis through. You know, I think that. And even in the midfield, you had a few. Obviously, you had the train. Again, the fact that Hulkenberg and Ocon started from the pit lane on the hard tyre and went long. The fact there was two of them as well, so Lando couldn't because Hulk's got DRS, so he can't jump Hulk. It was just this perfect kind of storm of mid that just resulted in the race being a bit dead. You know what I mean? Like if Hulkenberg and Ocon don't start from the pit lane, then Lando, Tsunoda, I think are going to make way more progress and keep that gap. It was like 25 seconds, like halfway into the race, because Ocon and Hulkenberg were just holding everyone up. Yeah,
but I mean, you've got basically what we've got now is this 4-block race, and if they hadn't done that weird strategy, you probably would have had like a 2 blocks and then a big kind of different third block, which was Sainz all the way back from there. But I think that touches on a little bit more about the problem was Baku didn't Baku. There was no chaos. The safety car came out at the pit window. You know,
this is what I said last episode. I said, if there's not a crash or anything like that, it's a snooze fest. And people say, Baku's exciting. And I went, no, it's just because crashes happen. That's the only thing that makes it exciting.
But it
no,
usually
you're right.
The racing is dead.
Yeah. The crashes, and like Tommo said, if there's no stops, it doesn't make it excitement. And if there's safety cars, you will have stops, and you have people trying to do different things. But the fact that you can do a no stop on a hard tire is just like, well, there's your problem.
That's the softest range, wasn't it, as well?
Yeah, exactly. That was all the way as soft as they could go. So I don't know. There's something there, but like we get into this thing where we start adding gimmicks to improve it. So what's the real problem? I think we can figure it out, but
all in all, I just think that a degree of patience is maybe somewhat needed for me.
No knee jerks.
I don't want to over exactly. Yeah,
but like let's take this on a sample of 2. We've had 2 races on the tire compound. I don't think Australia was the softest range, but we've had 2 races where you could do a no stop on the hard tire. Melbourne, you could have done a no stop hard. Baku, they did a no stop hard.
How much of the new surface, how much of the track being newly resurfaced do we think may have played into it being a bit of a bore draw? Because we've seen it a few times where when they resurface a track, it just seems to make everything last forever, and it becomes very dull.
Because it was Baku, was it 21 or 22 when Max? Yeah, 21 when Max and Lance both had their tires blow up. So why was there such high wear? They've changed the compounds, haven't they, slightly since then?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was wear, but more of a structural issue. And if it was a structural issue, Pirelli would have never admit that. They literally they can't effectively. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's actually a fault with the tires. They can never say that there's a fault with the tires. That's why you literally the only explanation is ever debris. So that's a tough one. And how did the new surface impact?
First name Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he was a problem as well. But
yeah,
I think that kind of summarizes why this race was a bit of a dud. And
we had a whopping 13 overtakes, I believe it is. 13, I think was the number.
What was the IndyCar race? Like 1,000?
They were gassing up Gasly and Sargent, like right at the back, scrapping for like like literally last. And I was that's when you know it's bad.
Go on, lad. Yeah, exactly. What did you who was your money on to win the Grand Prix? What was your podium before the race? Did you have one in mind, Tommo?
My top 3 for last lap were right. So Perez, Verstappen, Leclerc was my predicted top 3. Yeah.
But did you do that before the weekend? Way before the weekend?
No, I did that. That was Sunday morning before the race.
Okay,
so.
That's not bad.
See, educated guesses with data. We don't do that here, my friend.
Yeah, exactly. So we hedged our bets. I went for Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc. So I was out of order. What did you go for, Dan? Dan went a little bit bolder, but I respect the fucking hustle.
maybe I
He likes the
started.
attention.
Yeah, maybe I started drinking earlier than I thought because I put Alonso first, Verstappen second, which was right in the end. Verstappen got second, right?
True.
And Perez third. So I got 1 out of 3.
Well done. Let's talk. So the Grand Prix is effectively over, but it's not over yet. What the fuck was the photographer pit lane bowling thing? That was frightening, man. That was actually frightening.
Yeah. So I can't imagine anyone missed it, but if they did, so last lap of the race, Ocon still needs the pits because he's still got his hard tyres on from Bahrain at the start of the season. He has to pit to make his mandatory stop. And the fire marshals decided to block off the entrance to the pit lane. It wasn't a good look as Ocon was coming down the pit lane and then loads of people were frantically getting out of the way. But yeah, and in response to that, the FIA decided to summon the FIA.
Yeah.
So very impressive.
FIA, bad.
How dare you? We'll make a note and we'll have a harsh reprimand. It's like, can you imagine after the podcast, Dan and I just talking about how we've done a really bad job. What are we going to do next weekend? The same job again.
Yeah. So I've got the decision document here of what this was, right? So the official thing is people blocking the fast lane in the pit lane on the final lap while the pit lane remained open. The stewards heard from the FIA representatives and determined that the relevant representatives took steps to set up the parc fermé area and also permitted media and other personnel to gather in the start of the pit lane and the pit wall during the last lap of the race. Now, unofficially, this is not on document, but photographers and staff in the pit lane towards the end of a race is not new.
No, that happens every week. That's literally every week. They've set up the bollards for P1, 2, and 3. Everybody's getting there with their camera to get their prime spot to get like, oh God, yeah, Checo flex when you're standing on top of the Red Bull. Sorry.
Oh, dear.
Sorry, Jamie. Sorry, Tommo. Other Tommo, photographer Tommo.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, bless him. Fucking throwing me completely off now. So I think the issue... Fucking... We'll just throw that. We'll throw one of them in there while we're at it. The issue was the fire marshal set up the fucking. Oh my god!
EngineBraking is not good.
I can't. Oh, fucking no, nothing. Oh,
Dickhead.
They fucking set up
What a
the barriers.
dickhead.
They shouldn't have set up the fucking barriers. The FIA said, "Oh, we regret it. We'll promise it will never happen again." Well, whatever.
This is
Fuck
what
off.
I mean, right? We're talking about Albon, right? Doing the one stop in Australia. This literally happened then. There was VIP Muppets like on the side of, like when he was driving through. You see on Alex's onboard, like they're within a few feet of the side of his car. So it's not the first time it's happened. They've not learned from what happened. Like in Australia, it wasn't. It was only if you saw the onboard afterwards, you're like, oh, that's a bit sketchy. But here you've got Sky Sports. You've got Ted losing his mind, rightly so, because he thinks about 60 people about to have their ankles cut off by an F1 car.
Have you ever played Carmageddon?
No, I haven't.
That's a messed up game.
He's not as old as us.
Yeah, exactly.
That game's
I've heard of
about
it. I've
25
heard of
years
it.
old.
They have to like do like a different version for like different countries because so
They
many
did,
countries
yeah.
didn't allow it.
Yeah, they did.
I've heard about that.
But yeah,
It's just
it was shambles. So what they did is basically they find themselves $1,000 and they paid themselves $1,000 to go buy a nice bottle of wine and have dinner. No
I
fine.
didn't even do that. There's not even a fine listed on this.
How can
They
you
just
find
said,
yourself?
"Oh, yeah." They just said, "Oh no, it's happened
£10.
again.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you for
We
£10.
promise it won't ever happen again." I'll guarantee you, it happens at least once more this fucking season.
Love that. Love that. So, the championship, Perez versus Verstappen. Max is only 6 points ahead right now. The race is on. Last season, Perez tanked massively after the summer break, and a lot of people are like, it's because they developed the car for Max Verstappen. And I'm sitting here, every time I read one of those comments, I literally want to put my face through fucking drywall. In my like this wall right here, it's not that sturdy, so it would be really nice to break my face through that wall, and it wouldn't really hurt that much because it moves quite a bit.
Chat, you know what to do.
No, I
The
don't.
name is Brake, so
No, don't do it. But like, but seriously, like,
nature.
So from 2015 until 2021 for the 22 car, I've worked on every single one of those cars in the simulator, and I don't ever remember doing a make the car for Max Verstappen session. What we ended up doing was spending more time when a teammate was struggling. You spent more time trying to find tools and setups and changes that you could do to the car that would make the driver that was struggling. Max was like, I'll drive whatever. Here's what I want. And if you can add that, great, but I'm going pretty quick right now. And it's like, okay, Gasly, you're having a tough time with this car. Daniel, you're having a tough time with this car. Alex, you're having a tough time with this car. What do you need? Let's work on those things. And that's the kind of stuff we were working on. I don't remember the makes Max the fastest driver and ignore the other driver narrative. And like, people lay into that so heavily, and I was like, that's really great. But I'll just tell you now. So that narrative is now dead.
Okay.
Another
Dead, is it?
Another thing. No, it's never gonna not come back. Another thing though is like the McLaren, or the Mercedes. Lewis doesn't even like driving the simulator, and as far as I'm aware, he hasn't really been particularly involved until last year. Like, that's
the thing. Like, it's a different generation, isn't it? Like, yeah. I think these young drivers now, you know, you come through the ranks, and you know, there's more access to simulators. You look at, I mean, last year I went to Team Redline, which is like Max's esports team, and they've got the at that same location, they've got one of the, I think they're two huge, like, there's a Formula 2, well, junior Formula simulator, which is used by a lot of like F2 drivers and that, and like the facilities now are like incredible. And I guess you look at the more old school drivers, yeah, they're not going to necessarily have, because you also look, when Lewis's first season at McLaren, you know, the amount of testing, like unlimited testing back then, you could get a whole season's worth of mileage under your belt before you've even, you know, driven a lap in rage. So maybe it is just kind of different relationships, and some drivers don't, because you're never going to replicate it to 100%. So maybe just for some drivers, Max can drive. Max is one of the best sim racers in the world, and he's also one of the best Formula One drivers in the road. But they are, you know,
different.
I mean,
they're very different,
similar, but they're different. Yeah, exactly.
No, for sure. No, that's completely it. So that's.
Do you know who else is the best sim racer in the world? Our very own Blake, Mr. 2 for 2 on iRacing.
Oh yeah,
MX5 boy.
So I've got my rookie license. Dan and I both have our rookie license right now.
No, I haven't got mine yet. I'm one race away.
No, rookie.
Well, you're not even a rookie.
No, you're
sorry. No,
rookie?
Sorry. Rookie's the default one. Yeah,
you don't have your D class, but I have entered 2 MX5 races, and I've won both of them. My strategy for success, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna break it down to you. What you need to do when you're absolutely dog water at this game is lap 1, back out. You will literally, if you don't qualify on pole, you'll be second by the end of lap 1 if you just back out.
Will open.
And then the next thing is, it's really easy to force people to make mistakes without even being like, not even bullying them. Just be like, I know that you can't overtake me on the inside, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my car here. I'm going to give you half the track to fuck with, but you cannot overtake me into turn 1 if I'm in the middle lane. All I have to do is back out and watch you sail off into the barriers. And that's my recipe for success. So after this stream, I'm going to do another MX5 race, and anybody got 100 gifted on the line if we get another win, 3 for 3. I got to pay some bills. Thanks, Moza Racing, by the way, for the steering wheel.
Deary me.
Dan, you've not taken that approach though. It's everything or nothing. You're George Russelling it.
Nothing. Yeah. I've paid my iRacing subscription. I'm going to use all the track.
Yeah, exactly.
I want my money's worth out of it.
Oh yeah. You got any interest in sim racing, Tommo? Because like until full disclosure, Moza reached out to me a while back and like, hey, we'd love to send you some gear for you to try out and review it. And I was like, I'd love to, because I'd love to have a sim racing rig. Playseat and Elgato sent me some stuff as well, which is awesome. But do you have any interest in sim racing? Because I had no interest before that, because it's like, I just don't have time.
Here's my wheel that doesn't get used very often, but I've just worked out how to get this set up with my, because since I moved into this place, I've not used my sim at all.
Okay.
I've just worked it out over the last, because I'm actually doing a sim racing thing later this week.
Ooh.
for a game that I haven't even downloaded. So
I did that last year.
After this.
I did that last year. Yeah? It was a lot of fun, and I was terrible.
Hang on. Let me just. I've got something special to show, actually. If I can pick it up.
Look at this guy.
Here's my seat.
Oh, hell yeah.
Oh, my God. So for our audio listeners, Tommo is just casually lifting a racing seat into the background.
And he's also a very strong lad as well.
Yeah, you are very strong, aren't you, Tommo?
I know.
Back's gone.
Well, you know what?
Okay.
Best of luck. And are you going to meet George or Lewis?
Depends how well I do.
Okay.
But if I get, that's a good question, actually. Yeah, who would you choose if you could have George or Lewis on the EngineBraking podcast? Don't forget to 5-star, by the way. Audio only people.
Oh, love you, thanks, Tommo.
Who would you? Who would you choose?
I would choose.
Who would be the best crack?
I would choose Lewis in a heartbeat.
I would choose George because I would make listeners choose between pick who did that impersonation, Dan or George. Oh, blimey, governor! No, was that George Russell or was that Dan?
Yeah, you fraud! It was George. God.
That's great. You could get 2 podcasts out of it. Then you could have Blake and Lewis.
I would seriously like as much as I love Red Bull and I'm a big Max fan. I would. Here's the thing, though. I don't think I'm a very good podcast host. I just don't. I don't. And for me,
wrong line of work, mate.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine.
Was you waiting for us to jump in there and say, "Oh no, you're brilliant"?
No. If you do, I'm going to call you a fucking liar anyway. But it's like, I don't know. Like a lot, the interviews that I see with like Lewis on the couch, like when he did the one with Brundle, it was a super cool conversation because you don't get people asking greats like that. You don't get that many good interviews like that one, and it was just super cool to see that. So I don't think I would do a very good job because I don't think I'm a very good interviewer. I'm great at talking with my mates about something I love, but Martin did a really good job with that, and Lewis, and that
just means you have to make Lewis your mate.
I don't think Lewis likes me. I don't think he'd like me.
They operate in different circles, Tommo.
Yeah.
You know.
So, hey, man, I just won a couple of MX5 races. Do you want to have some barbecue? He's like, motherfucker, I'm vegan. I'm like, sorry. To be fair, my Traeger, please talk to us. My smoked chicken and my beef rib.
Second fucking episode in a row you've been hawking yourself to Traeger. They're not listening.
I know, but
they're not fucking listening.
I love barbecue. I love barbecue. I love making barbecue. But anyway,
you got your local butchers.
Yeah, let's talk about. Is it time for Fraud Watch, Dan?
Yeah, go for it.
Is it time for Fraud Watch?
I mean, we said Max and Perez within 6 points of each other. We didn't actually make any more comment other than that.
No.
So I will say no disrespect to Checo, but does anyone realistically here think that he's going to beat Max over a season?
Over a season, no.
I don't think if there's a season, this is that season. Race 4, 6 points ahead.
Yeah.
This is the season.
This is his best chance.
This is his Rosberg 16.
Yeah, not only because of the small gap, but also because there's not an Aston Martin or a Mercedes or a Ferrari in the scrap as well, taking points off. They can fairly comfortably hope for 1-2s for most of at least this first half of the season. Maybe Aston Martin that's a worldie upgrade with their ATR, but yeah.
All
right, fine. So
that'll do me. Right, next.
Fraud Watch.
Macarena Watch. Tommo's on Fraud Watch. That's my vote for this week. Right. So basically,
don't hate me because you hate me, Blake.
Yeah, I know. So basically, Fraud Watch is where we put a team, driver, organization, inanimate object, or other on watch for being absolutely fraudulent. By default, the EngineBraking podcast. Hold on.
EngineBraking is not good.
Always on Fraud Watch, but so far, McLaren have featured twice. Ferrari have featured 3 times. Alpine, the FIA, the race director. So Dan, Tommo, you've got one in mind?
Yeah, I'm going straight in.
Yeah,
and
send it.
There's the obvious one, but you've picked the obvious one. So I'm going to go, Sainz. He was completely nowhere this weekend. And the trials have shown that But this weekend, that Ferrari was a capable car.
Yep.
Just Sainz was all by himself, doing nothing.
It still has the race fall. They have not gotten on top of their race pace and their tire situation, but Leclerc did a great job. Sainz absolutely nowhere in any session this weekend. I am going for the obvious one this week because I did a video at the beginning of the season talking about Nick de Vries, and I was just like, I'm not sure. Looking at his record, he's got some great wins, but in F2 he only beat Latifi. He's up and down. Seems like a nice dude, but he's struggling so bad in the AlphaTauri. So I've got de Vries on Fraud Watch. Tommo, hit us.
So I've picked someone who, these are 2 stinky weekends in a row, and you could say a lot of this weekend's problems weren't on him, but some of them were certainly. Pierre Gasly.
It's not looking good.
Great.
No, that's a good one. And I think all the I know some people in the F1 world listen to us. If any of you happen to be at Alpine, I can only express my condolences for rebuilding a burnt out car only for it to get crashed again about 3 hours later or whatever.
Honestly, I couldn't believe he put it in the wall. I was like, oh, yeah, man, come on,
I mean,
please.
Logan did have a tough weekend as well, mostly to his own doing.
He did, but he's a rookie. 4 races in.
I'm giving him a pass on that, and we'll talk back our random fandom report in a minute. But
Florida man takes out Middle Eastern wall.
Yeah, Jesus, that's going on fraud files, not Fraud Watch. All right, so let's move on to the next one, shall we?
Oh, who's a good boy?
I am. I'm a good boy.
So this is where we basically just we've talked some trash about somebody, and we need to give some props where it's due. We've had quite a few features so far this season. Testing Joe and Bottas, those guys are basically on Fraud Watch now, in my opinion, but they're not fraudulent enough. Alonso, Sargent, Tsunoda, Max, McLaren, Albon, Alonso, and Checo have. Oh, sorry. I just told you what we got this week, but anyway. McLaren and Albon have been on Good Boy. So, Dan, who's your engine mode Good Boy for the week?
Grande eres, Magic Alonso.
Oh, love that.
I think he's had issues with DRS all weekend. Aston Martin, they was having some DRS issues. He was being like a father figure for Lance, saying, "Hey, just give Lance my brake balance settings. It's fine." Completely coincidental that Lance ended went flying straight off the track. That's purely coincidental. Yeah. Listen, Alonso, the hype train is real.
Yeah. But what about Alonso on the lap? He's like, his engineer gave him some brake balance changes, and Alonso's like, "Oh yeah, those are really good. Can you give those to Lance?" I was like,
exactly, yeah.
I was like, I can't believe if Lance was right behind him, he'd have been like, "Yeah, -5 on the brake balance. I promise it's meant." And then you see just Lance into the wall.
The best bit between them two, which has been chronically undercovered afterwards, was when Stroll was behind Fernando and he was within a second, and Stroll was like, "I'm not going to overtake Fernando. I'm just going to sit here." And then Fernando was like, "Oh, tell Lance he can have a go." When has that ever happened? the driver behind is like, "I'm all right here," and the driver in front is like, "Go on, tell him to have a go at me."
Yeah, I mean,
my
like,
teammate.
But what he did say after that is like, if he can get past me and clear me, then he can attack ahead. Is what he was getting at, and I was like, yeah, I get that. It wasn't just like, "I'm bored here, let's have some wheel to wheel." He was like.
He's like, "Oh, he can have a guy if he wants." Like,
this race is so shit. I'm going to engineer my own racing.
Yeah. No, that
was it. Bring it on. That's it, Hennessy. Exactly. So, bring it on. Which I was like, I love that.
I've got Checo on Good Boy this week. Just did a clean weekend. Didn't have a bad qualifying. Didn't have a perfect qualifying. But he was there all weekend. No major mistakes. Raced super well, and he just had great pace. Like, that's a tricky circuit, and we know that Checo's good at street circuits, but I have nothing else to add to that. I think Checo deserves some gas on this one. Tommo, who are you going for?
It's tough. There's two drivers front and center in my mind. Honorable mention.
Okay.
Because I don't think he could have done much more. Charles Leclerc.
Yep.
But
yeah.
Fair. No, very fair.
Yuki Tsunoda. I'm going for him. Sod it.
Okay.
First time we've seen an AlphaTauri Q3.
Yeah.
Yes, he had a bit of a sit, but De Vries put him in the wall in the sprint, as far as I'm concerned. Yes, he had a bit of a sit early on the weekends. But at the end of the day, like, you know, he was in that train, I think, without Ocon and Hulkenberg train put out. He's carrying that team. Like,
it's kind of hard not to.
2 P11s, 2 P10s. Like, he's doing bits right now. And Yuki Tsunoda, boom.
Fair enough, man. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm just like, I'm so underwhelmed by De Vries. It's one of those things. I like Yuki. I think he's awesome, and he's definitely come around a lot more. I love his swearing on the radio so fucking much. But
how much of it is De Vries underperforming? Because, like, you know, Jody Eggerton said, like, you can't look at him like a rookie. You know, he's got all this experience. He's older than, he says, 3 years older than Charles Leclerc. You know, he's been around for time. And you look at, you know, how much of this is De Vries disappointing? Because he's tested a lot of F1 machinery as well over the years.
He tested every car last season that had a Mercedes in it.
Exactly. And so how much of it is him letting down versus Yuki stepping up? Because Yuki, relative to Pierre, was a lot closer last year than he was in his rookie season. Yeah.
Who knows, man? I'm bummed about it, honestly. Do you want to?
Lawson's like.
Yeah, he's sitting there. Imagine if you're Daniel Ricciardo. Even is Daniel rubbing his mitts, or is he taking the cash and chilling right now? I'm waiting for the big seat. If Danny Rick would be an asset in that AlphaTauri.
Fair question.
Franz Tost is gone. Get Ricciardo back in there for a bit. See if there's a redemption arc. That's it. Like the fact
I don't hate that shout. Because it's not like De Vries is this young Red Bull Junior that they would be, you know, they've invested time in. You know, they're like him from elsewhere.
They were like, oh, Gasly's leaving. We need a driver. Who's driven a car recently? Oh, De Vries has driven 3 or 4 other Mercedes-powered cars. Fine, we'll have him. That seems like what it was. I think Liam's probably...
Ricardo would be really interesting. It would be.
Yeah. Why don't we, Dan, you want to hit us with that random fandom?
Random fandom.
Oh my god.
Budget on this show, boys.
Yeah, dude, honestly,
notch.
If you guys need to be fair, your guys at the last lap do a spectacular job. Your YouTube as well, also top notch. Yeah, we'll plug you in a second. We'll let you plug everything you want to do. We'll plug every single thing. But this weekend, now you have to plug yourself on this show. Yeah. Oh my. Oh shit. But anyway, Dan, you've got Haas this weekend. Give us a quick report card on your Haas.
My Haas report for this weekend, it was pretty shit for them, to be honest.
Yeah.
But the car never looked terrible. They just were a bit unlucky. So in FP1, K-Mag had his issue with a fuel system issue. Then, for good measure, had an electrical issue in qualifying. Nico couldn't really get a clean lap together for qualifying. The sprint race was a bit mixed. K-Mag climbed a few places, but Nico struggled with tyre life. Interestingly, after Nico said that the sprint race was basically their long run practice, which I think is something we theorised might happen.
Definitely.
Sorry, I just...
Are you just thinking about... Then...
Yeah. Oh my god.
And all Tommo's thinking about it.
Compose yourself, Daniel. Come on.
Basically, Nico elected to change the car, set up overnight, so he had a pit lane start. Gambled on a late safety car strategy, which never came. Pretty much finished 17th in the end. Kevin went back to his original form of losing his end plate at the start. Well done. I think that's more Bottas's fault or whatever. Recovered, finished 13th. And that's, like I say, a bit of a crap weekend, really. But Gunter has hyped them up, saying that he expects them to be strong in Miami. So,
fair enough.
We shall see.
Home race for them. So.
Yeah, exactly. America needs to be America's team. You know what I'm saying? Grand Pooh Bear said that best. He's like, Haas, I'm going to need you to be America's team because you're not America's team right now. But I had Williams for the weekend, and I'll speak on. I'll let Tommo say a couple words about his boy Alex. But I think they had reasonable pace on Friday. There was a lot of teams out of order. Mercedes and Alpine were especially out of order, and Alex doing very well. I'm not holding Logan to too much this year. First year in the car in a Williams, which is probably a low downforce, probably a pretty tricky car. Alex is doing absolute bits with that thing. Alex is so close to getting to Q3. He felt like Sainz maybe held him up a little bit, but realistically, he was like, you know what? It was just one of those things. Logan had some issues this week, and I'll leave that. I'm not going to beat him 2 down. Albon P7 in the sprint shootout, and then Sargent destroys his car completely and is unable to take part in the sprint race. Ouch.
He was 9th in the shootout, wasn't he, Albon? Because Stroll got him.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
P9. See, like we said, I don't even bother remembering the sprint shootout because just like it's another.
I always remember where Alex finishes, mate.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's why we had you on, because I knew I was going to fluff that. But Sargent's car was irreparable in time for the sprint. Sargent does not take place in it. Albon P9 in the sprint. And in the race, so P9's the first non-point scoring, unlucky. Race, they got P12 and P16. Alex, I think, had a B weekend. Probably all right. He could have done a little bit better in qualifying. I think he had it in him. I think he feels that way too. Sargent struggled. I'm going to give him a D. They had a tough weekend, though. Nothing great. But any thoughts on that, Tom? Just quick, a couple points, because I know you do follow Alex's weekends quite closely, because he is probably one of the nicest dudes on the grid.
That's what I go for.
And he's
finished 9th. Apparently.
Yeah.
I think it was okay. I mean, he did comfortably seem to have the advantage over Logan in terms of outright pace in the quali sessions. He got caught in that train. That's the same train that Piastri and Norris and Tsunoda were stuck in during the race. So yeah, I don't think he could have done too much more. He was a bit, turn 2 when he stuck his nose up the inside of Piastri into a gap that was only going to close. I think he just outbraked himself, right? And he got his front wing end plate taken off for good measure. So that was a little bit scruffy. But yeah, I think all in all, he's showcasing that Williams isn't, is as much in the midfield as, everyone else in that bottom kind of 6 almost. I've not seen enough from Alpine or even McLaren yet to say confidently that they're clear of Williams and AlphaTauri right now, to be honest.
No, I think we really still don't know about a lot of the pecking order from the midfield, because you end up getting those gaggles of cars, and they're stumbling over each other to get into Q2 and then maybe into Q3. So whereas the other guys are just clear all the time. So fair enough. Shall we get on to the Miami preview for everybody that's been patiently suffering through all this?
Yes. And as we're on the Miami preview and we are on Random Fandom, shall we do our draw for Miami Random Fandom now?
Go on. Tommo's going to get one as well, because he's going to give us a little. You can record a 60-second clip and fire it over, can't you?
I can make that effort for you.
Go on, lad.
Thank
Not
you.
61, but
Go on, lad. Then I'll later plug you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For fuck's sake.
Your socials, mate.
Right, I'm fucking spinning Tommo's because you two are fucking.
Are you? You're him.
I didn't say it. Like, it's fine.
Tommo, dude, you got Ferrari, mate. Well done.
Oh my god.
Ragazzi, wonderful. Can't wait.
Ferrari.
It's going to be all over it
Right.
in Miami as well. They're American owners.
Haas? I meant to say Blake, not Haas.
Haas. Yeah. My name's Gene. I need to call Gene.
Right. Gene, you got Alfa Romeo. Good luck with that one.
Oh my god.
I'm waiting them just now.
You know what? As much as I like Valtteri and Joe, they're having they look great in testing, and this season looks bad. Not impressed.
Oh no, I'm spinning it again.
Romeo. That is I've coined.
I got Haas, but I did that last time. I'm spinning again.
Yeah.
Spin that motherfucker. It's gonna land on fucking Haas again, isn't it? It is.
It's meant
Fuck
to be.
off, man. I'm not doing Haas. Right, get out of it. One more. Third time lucky. Here we
Come
go.
on. The suspense is killing me.
McLaren, that'll do. We'll take McLaren.
Macaroni. Oh. So we've got that. Let's talk about the preview, Dan. What do we got about this? Because Miami is my one of my home races, but I don't remember anything about last year except for the shit chicane. And then everybody complained that the race had no overtaking, and it had, at the time, one of the highest overtakes. Just the TV direction was abysmal, which is common of Monaco. Monaco always recently has had terrible TV direction, and you miss all the good stuff. But what do we got? Like,
didn't you go to Miami last year, Tommo?
I did.
Oh, you
I
did?
was there.
Yeah.
Why don't you do our Miami preview then?
Yeah, go on. Tell us how your trip was, or what you can remember
exactly.
of it.
Yeah, it was fun. No, I went out on the Friday. I was at the Grand Prix for the Saturday. So I got really good shot, like in qualifying, going through those S's, whatever it's turn 4, 5, that kind of quite early on, like super quick through there. It reminds me of a bit of Austin, I guess, with those quick S's. Just you've got walls there as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I got the race obviously didn't massively deliver, but like you say, there was a lot of overtakes. I remember what Ocon went into the concrete wall, didn't he? And it kind of, he had to go to hospital afterwards because it was such a heavy impact, even though it looked quite innocuous. So I guess, look, first Grand Prix at a venue, there's always going to be a few teething issues, but generally speaking, I thought it was all right. I know it's a bit messy, that little chicane, right? But that's to stop the cars going so quickly that they get airborne and hit the bridge that's above it, because there's like a road that goes above that section of the track. That's why they have to slow them down so much.
I think you'll find our American listeners would call that an interstate.
Yeah, exactly. An overpass.
I'm surprised you didn't.
Whatever the fuck all of that means.
Well, Dan's more American than I am now,
it's
apparently.
A bridge, all right?
Listen, I appreciate a good roundabout, all right?
Roundabout. Fucking hell. I actually read a really interesting article on Jalopnik the other day from Elizabeth Blackstock talking about, she interviewed a bunch of fans about the experience in Miami, and they're like, they were unimpressed, I think was the general consensus. And I think she writes very well, and it's just like one of those things that's like, it felt very corporate and more for the sponsors than for the fans.
100%.
And I was like,
100%.
It's interesting that you say that as well, but because like there was a couple people she interviewed which were newish fans and some older fans, and they all kind of tended to agree. But that's actually a really interesting article if you have time, listeners, podcast and people live on Twitch. Really good article to read. Check that one out. But
yeah,
who
else doesn't like Miami?
Max?
No, the customers, because they are struggling with tickets this year.
Really?
They are aggressively emailing people with like 30% discounts to try and shift some tickets.
You know what? If somebody wants to pay me $1,000 a day, I'll come out. Give me a ticket, get my flight, give me a decent hotel.
I'll get an image of me in my trunks swimming on a fake arena,
yes.
I'll let it all hang out.
Viral.
Even on the Saturday, I saw a lot of price gougers trying to flog tickets outside. But
I wonder if this is because of Vegas has now appeared on the calendar and everyone's realised, if I'm going to spend that much money, I might as well just spend an extra $300 and go to Vegas.
They are competing now,
dude. Yeah. But like, honestly, I got really good tickets for Austin. I think I ended up paying like $300 or $400 for 3 days. I mean, I got a really, really excellent deal on it. Fine, but I mean, looking at some of the how much people are spending in Miami to go to this race, why? I mean, and I've got a whole nother video I'm working on about the tracks, like the fan experience at a track, and I've got some thoughts about it. And I won't go into it too much, but I don't feel like the value's there, unless you love it. But like, why would you?
Value and Formula One are two words that do not go together right now.
I mean, I'm at the point where I do not want to go to a race. I would much rather enjoy it from my seat here on the computer. I've got more information. I've got my data that's coming through. I can hear the commentary. I can live stream and talk with all my friends about what's going on. Why would I be at a race where I'm sweltering hot, spending $20 for a hot dog? I want to buy a hat. It's $100 for a fucking hat. Agree. It's like,
I couldn't agree more. Like my ideal weekend right now is to go Friday, Saturday, and then watch it at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get the vibes. Yeah. Get a couple beers in on Friday. Yeah. You're gonna spend out the year for a beer, but so be it. But we're gone around in circles talking about Miami, and I don't think we really want to talk about Miami too much. But like, what is going on? Where is the circuit? What is this place about, Dan? Like,
so the The Miami circuit is set in the Hard Rock Stadium complex in Miami Gardens, home to the NFL's Miami Dolphins. Now, I don't know a fucking a thing about NFL, but I know 30% of our listeners are American. So, hooray,
toot.
go Miami Dolphins or
Toot,
something.
toot.
USA.
Dan, what you just described to me sounds very much like they've built a Formula One track in a parking lot around a stadium.
How very dare you? That is completely not what they've done. It's meant to be give the permanent facility vibe, apparently, according to the official press release that I didn't regurgitate 30 seconds ago.
Oh,
yeah, it is.
I'll be honest. It did feel like it felt more like a permanent track because it's not roads, because it is still cordoned off. Like you're not using. I don't think there are any actual roads. It is like the space around the car parking area around. It did feel, yeah, I would say it felt like a permanent track more so.
Because they put barriers up.
We'll take it from Tommo because he's actually fucking been there.
Yeah,
like
true.
Us two frauds.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of like in certain parts of the track. There's quite a lot of runoff as well, which it didn't feel constrained by its surroundings, like Monaco and Azerbaijan, for example, do.
That's fair enough.
That's what I mean.
Fair enough.
It's a 5.41 kilometer lap with 19 corners, 3 straights, 3 DRS zones, and top speeds of over 340 kilometers an hour.
What's that in real money? I don't use miles per hour. Miles per hour sucks.
I think 300. No. Like 200 odd miles an hour or something. I don't know.
What the is a kilometer?
All right, Logan, I need you to calm down. What gear is that? I need that in Imperial units. It's a fucking gear, man. It's 3. Last year we saw the surface breaking up. We saw Aston got pinged for fuel temp. Was it in a pit lane start? What was that about?
Yeah,
I don't even remember that.
Pre-race, their fuel was too cool.
That's a very interesting story.
Doesn't sound very interesting.
No, it's not. It's not. So here's how that works. You are allowed.
You're never allowed back on.
Oh my god! No, Tommo's in. I'm out.
I could get away with it, all right?
Yeah, exactly. So they basically try to.
Me later,
they try. I'm gonna.
Tommo, be quiet. He's trying to sound so smart. All right, let him have his moment.
Oh Jesus! So, long story short, the fuel cells have a limited capacity, and when you chill the fuel, you can get more in, quite a lot. So it could be, 10 degrees could be a couple liters of fuel. They make the fuel cells as small as they can. So teams will cool down. I think previously you could cool to 10 degrees below the ambient temperature 2 hours before the race. Well, Aston didn't do that. They went way too cold, which is bad for boating. So they got pinged for that. And that's something that I used to do in my old life, was like, right, go find the temperature 2 hours before the race from the FIA screen. They'd put it on the timing screens at the circuit. Temperature 2 hours before the race is this. So then I would go to the fuel man and be like, right, whack the chiller down to this, and that's that. But it sounds like they had a little issue there. And was that, I don't think that was particularly dubious. It's just a mistake. It was a fuck up. Leclerc pole?
Yes.
Street circuit merchant?
Yeah, Charles got pole here last year, and as is traditional with all Charles poles, Max won. Charles finished second with Sainz third.
Ugh.
Yeah, that's Miami.
I think I'm going to say Checo pole.
You think he's going to continue with this street circuit strength?
Why not?
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right, Tommo, give me your top 5 in quali. We're going to Miami predictions now, by the way. Tommo's leading.
Perez, Verstappen, Hamilton.
Fraud. You're not
Russell,
Hamilton.
Leclerc.
Okay, Ferrari taking a dump. Dan?
I'm going to try to be more serious this time. I've got, who have I got? I've got McLaren, haven't I? No, I can't put fucking Piastri on.
No,
that's not
fucking
realistic.
way, bro.
Orlando. I'm going to put Charles, the Saturday Merchant, on pole. Then Perez in second. I reckon Max will have a stinker for some reason. So we'll put him third. Alonso fourth, because I just can't seem to get Alonso's name out of my mouth.
No.
And then who do I want in fifth? We'll put Hamilton in fifth. Actually, yeah, go on, we'll put Hamilton in fifth.
Ugh. I'm going Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc, Hamilton, Sainz. I'm kind of boring, but I feel like that's a good one. Right, podium, top 3. Tommo, hit me.
Okay. I think it's going to be a little bit of a wearer on the car. I'm going to go
Hulkenberg.
Russell win
Okay.
ahead of Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen.
Okay. Nice. Dan, your podium?
I reckon the street circuit merchant Perez again, just to spice up the championship. Actually, I'm just going to copy and paste this week's fucking podium. Perez, Verstappen, Charles. There you go.
I'm swapping it around. I'm going Verstappen. And you did Perverlek. I did Verperlek. Verstappen, Perez, Leclerc this weekend. I think Max will.
The fucking Red Bull bias is disgusting.
Oh my god! I mean, look. If you go back and look at the fucking race trace, if you pick anybody other than a Red Bull to win the race, you're an absolute fucking goofball, Tommo. But you know what? Bring me the chaos.
Repping all my goofballs out there.
Bring me the chaos this weekend. I would love to see that. Honestly, I think, if your prediction were to come true, we would have a substantially more interesting race than either of Dan or Mai's races come true. So, I'm not knocking it. I'm saying, inject it. So, I think that's all we got, don't we? Anything else for today? We've recorded for an hour and 40. This is our longest, most bullshit podcast ever. But it's been nice to have a chat again, Tommo. It's like we're in the studio again.
Yeah, this was inevitably going to happen, bringing me on, boys.
Yeah, no,
the waffle is going to take over, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It works well.
So before we let everybody go, where can everybody find you? Because I know you've got an awesome YouTube channel. You've got the Last Lap podcast.
With his silver play button in the background.
Exactly.
There.
I mean, look at this. This is YouTube royalty right here. When's the gold one coming?
Millie,
the gold one?
Millie,
is
baby.
that $1 million?
Yeah, no 500k, unfortunately. I could order more of these. They cost about 140 quid, I think, if I wanted to know.
Yeah.
So you get one for your
can you
bedroom.
get one for us, and we'll just tape our name on it.
Just sticker. Just get a sticker on it. Lovely. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, where can everybody find
me on YouTube? Tommo, Tommo. Simple. 5 letters. Nice SEO. Sorry, friendly.
Yeah.
I am a CEO myself, I guess. And yeah, so I make video every week. I do live streams around the race as well. Also, the Last Lap live watch along that we've had YouTube gentlemen on individually. We need to do it at some point.
Yeah, we need to come back as a duo.
That'd be rad.
That would be sick. But we'd love to have you on at some point.
None of the stupid fucking Asian races that are like at 2 a.m. in the morning. Thank you. Let's get something nice and European.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice and on your. Okay, we'll work around your calendar, Dan. All right. We'll make
Thank you. If you could, please, that'd be very fucking considerate of you, right? I got kids. I got a family, right? Blake's just got 2 fucking cats, and all he's got to do is leave a tin of food out for them. That's fine. But if I do that, people call the police.
Look, we all make choices in life at the end of the day, boys.
And also Twitter.
Pleasure. Yes, at Tommo F1 because
Twamo.
Twitter Tommo. Only W's are taken over there as well. And here on Twitch as well, Tommo Live or Tom Olive with 2 M's.
Tom Olive, yeah. Do you have an olive emote, by the way?
No, I should. Yeah, I used to stream loads on Twitch.
I know.
Maybe now that I've got my sim rig.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm hearing. I just talked to Matt yesterday, Matt Amos, and he was like, iRacing. I'm like, go on. Our other podcast guest, Joao Jeanette, he's like, let's go. A couple of other people. So yeah, we'll get it going, guys. Thank you so much. Don't forget, don't buy that crap Tesco meat. Local butcher, that's the one.
Yeah,
all right.
Big up your local butchers. Big up your nans. Don't put in your mouth.
Yeah,
or...
yeah, you.
Yeah, and no, just fuck off.
Okay.